My name is David Carrot. I'm here to talk about how firms can benefit from a common MarkLogic use case, the Universal Data Repository. Today I'll show an example of a repository in action. In other sessions, I'll cover topics like how you create a repository and the mechanics of making data available to end users. The scenario behind the Universal Repository is that a firm has many primary systems which work fine, are not being replaced, and the firm needs to be able to perform consolidated data access against the entire data set. There's usually no desire to copy all the data over to the repository because it's going to be too big. Sometimes the primary data can be petabytes in size. What happens is that for most of the data, the firm generates metadata from each of the underlying records and then creates a metadata document for it. For important highly accessed data, the entire records may be loaded into the system, but that's going to generally be rare just because of the size. And so then once you have all this metadata in your system, you use a wide variety of data access techniques like semantic ontologies, document filtering, SQL, to make the data easily accessible and queryable, even to users who know nothing about these underlying technologies. Let's set up the demo. What we're going to be talking about is a mortgage metadata repository. The idea is you're a bank and you have dozens of primary systems that contain information relating to your mortgages. That's everything from checks and credit reports and statements to details about the mortgage. And you need to have a consolidated way to query all that information, which may be spread out over 20, 30, 40 different systems. Basically, you want to go from a wide variety of Word documents and PDFs and relational data and be able to create the kind of dashboards you see on the screen here. So what this firm starts out with is a lot of relational data, maybe PDFs like the credit report you see. And then what they do is use MarkLogic technology, our data hub technology, and our semaphore technology to create metadata extracts. And the metadata extracts will look like this. So a mortgage document might be a couple of megabytes, a legal contract, lots of information about it. But in order to do the analytics to create the kind of dashboards that we just saw, you only need a small subset of that. So you use MarkLogic's technology to extract the metadata from each of the underlying data types, whether they're coming from structured or semi-structured or unstructured data, and then create documents that look like this for each of your data sources. And then in addition, you'll want to have some semantic ontologies to help you understand the information better. So this is the simplest ontology you can possibly imagine. It's basically who's married to who. So it's just saying that this person is married to this person and this person's married to this person. And so by doing that, we're going to show an example of householding based on that kind of information. Once you've created your universal repository, what do your end users see? To start, the key they need is how do they connect to the MarkLogic ODBC driver. So you'll need to provide this information to them. What's the data source? Which database they're going to connect to, the IP address of the server, their username and their password, and the port number to connect to. And once they've done that, they are all set. After that, they can go to any ODBC compatible system, and so in this case we'll use Tableau, and connect to MarkLogic, to the universal repository. So once they've connected, what do they see? So coming here, everything that was modeled inside of MarkLogic is now available as a table. So we loaded lots of different kinds of information. We loaded checking information about the customers, the legal cases, descriptions of the mortgages, and also the relationships. And this is actually the most interesting one, that this is a representation of a Sparkle query, so that we were talking about a second ago, that we have triples that link individuals together for householding information about who's married to who. That's now exposed as a SQL relationship. And so with that, once you've loaded it, now you can start creating your dashboards. So you can do simple ones like what the days late are. You can do some queries about who's got late loans, some description about how your mortgage types are. So once again, you're going from data that looks like this. You're using MarkLogic to turn it into this. And then what your users see is a SQL view of the data that they can do. Turn into something that looks like this. And then you can combine it all in dashboards. And the most interesting case is probably, so we have the geospatial data and everything else. But the most interesting case is this one here, which actually shows the multi-model capabilities of MarkLogic. And so this is combining our Sparkle query with SQL access against the mortgage data. And so what you have here on the left-hand side is the ID number of your individual customers. And then if this says null, then this is talking about what properties they own. But if you have another value here, then that's the social security number of the person's spouse. And so what this does is it allows you to really improve your risk analysis. So suppose that originally you do a query to say who's late, who's missed some payments. And what you'll get is a bunch of results, and they'll be useful. But then you say, well, what we really want to know is who's late and who has spouses who are also late. And so you do this, and now you find, okay, here's one. This person's greater than 90 days, and their spouse has a separate property that's 30 to 60 days late. And so now we know that this is not just that somebody forgot to make some payments, but there's a family-wide crisis going on. So now you can, this is again a very simple case, but this can be expanded in many, many ways. You can expand the ontology to include their children, their other relatives, where they work, what their other interests are, so you can do very complex and interesting householding. I'm just keeping it simple to make it understandable. But now your users, they don't understand any of these ontologies, they don't understand SQL. What they're doing is they understand SQL and they're just coming in there and accessing the data from their SQL environment that they're used to without understanding any of these underlying complex technologies. So that's really what MarkLogic's Universal Data Repository offers you. It gives you the ability to go from data that looks like this, turns into this, and then what your end users do is this. And it's as easy as possible. We handle all the things from fact extraction, from unstructured data. We help you create the ontologies. We give you all the different tools for the exciting new data technologies that are out there. We combine SQL, document filtering, free text searching, geospatial, all into one package in a user interface driven application with minimal coding. So that's the end user experience. If you want to learn more details on the mechanics of building the data sets for the repository, how you take your unstructured and semi-structured and structured data and turn it into a unified whole, or if you want to learn about the details of how you take all the different kinds of information and then expose it to your SQL users, check out other sessions in this series.